Welcome, everyone. We want to thank you guys for attending today. It should be a really fun conversation. If you don't know the two that I'm going to introduce next, you will by the end of the presentation. So a couple things. We do have the Q&A available and the chat available. You're here with Akiptan. We are bringing the updates of the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service to you today. If you're not familiar with Akiptan and what we do, we are a native CDFI based out of Eagle Butte, South Dakota, but we serve a nationwide audience. And so we're able to help all Native American producers who are in production agriculture. We have education, loans, a lot of TA, one-on-one type stuff that we do to really get people to the business plan that they want to see. So definitely, if you want more information about that, I'll be putting some stuff in the chat here after a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to what they deem Thing 1 and Thing 2 out of Dupree, South Dakota. I was lucky enough that back in another life, I got to work with these guys a little bit here and there. We have Nate Grueb and we have Dave Pesicka. Nate is a tribal liaison for the state of South Dakota for NRCS, and Dave is our tribal liaison for the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. And so they're going to kick it over, and just want you guys to know if you guys do have any questions at all, throw those in the chat, throw them in the Q&A. We'll get to them. These guys are a wealth of knowledge, and we want this to be a really open conversation. So as those questions roll off the top of your head, shoot them over and we will get them taken care of. I'm going to kick it over to, I don't know which one of you is going to talk first, so I'll just kick it over to you guys and let you roll.
Paper, rock, scissors. I'm Nate, he's Dave, and I guess we're going to go over a few things with NRCS today. I'm going to start us off. Some of the things we're going to talk about today is kind of who and how NRCS operates. Dave's got a whole lot of examples and how to apply for assistance. We'll even get into some different educational opportunities we do and some career exploration. So, history of NRCS. Okay, so NRCS started in 1933, and there's this big glamorous story about how our founder, Hugh Hanneman Bennett, was standing in the halls of Congress, and he waited for this very specific day, and he was holding off in this meeting, and finally a dust storm from Kansas and Oklahoma blew through Washington, D.C., and it darkened the room, and they couldn't see the sun through the windows anymore. And Hugh Hanneman Bennett says, "Ladies or gentlemen, I introduce you to Kansas," as it blows by. And it really, for the way Congress acts, in less than 2 weeks, they started the soil erosion service. And so that was, during the Dust Bowl, and that was a lot of technical assistance and that sort of thing with farmers of that era. And throughout the years, it changed, and we changed our name, and we've changed kind of our roles. One of the great big times that we did a lot of changing was in the 1985 Farm Bill. That took us from strictly a technical service agency to now we started having some programs and that sort of thing. Then in 1994, they decided that we didn't want to be the Soil Conservation Service anymore, and so we changed our name to the Natural Resources Conservation Service. I don't know, Dave was like 20 back then, so he probably knows the reason why, but I wasn't old enough to know. So that's that's the Nate version of history for NRCS. One of the very first things I want to bring up is this is just South Dakota, right? So in South Dakota, we have a tribal liaison in every single reservation that is dedicated to just that reservation. And then they also have me, I'm the state tribal liaison, so I kind of deal with everything on the state level. But on the local level, we have people, eyes and ears with people for you to work with there. Plus, we have our regular staff. So you go through here and look. But if you need somebody, you want to talk to somebody, those are the people you can go talk to. And I like most of the people on that list, but there's some just call me instead. Justine, what are you giggling about?
You know, I'm glad when we introduced you guys, we said this is going to be thing one and thing two. I'm telling you guys, for all of our producers that are on here, these guys are about as honest as they come when it comes to what's happening and what's going on. So keep those questions open and keep them coming. They will give you the straight up answer.
This is just a map of South Dakota with all the different reservations and the tribal land. So what's important about this is in South Dakota, like 19% of the land in South Dakota is either on reservations or is in trust. And so what's important for that is in South Dakota, when we do our funding, especially under EQIP, they have dedicated 19% of the money goes to these lands. And so it's dedicated to them. We have separate fund pools. You compete against each other, you know, on those lands, that sort of thing. And those decisions are made from, we have these quarterly tribal conservation advisory council meetings. And those meetings are really important. Those are direct communication to our state conservationist, and he's very dedicated to those. And so if there are things, special fund pools, that sort of thing that you guys want, please attend those meetings because that's where those come from. And so by law, we're mandated that we have to put 5% towards socially disadvantaged. South Dakota does 5% plus another 19. So we try really hard to put that money where it's at, but just makes sense, right? 19% of our land is on the reservation, so we might as well be putting at least that much to it. Okay, the number one thing about working with NRCS is the conservation plan, right? Like we're going to talk about programs, we're going to talk about financial assistance, that sort of thing. All of that stems off of the plan, okay? We have this really great guidebook, the Getting Started, a guide to USDA resources, and it'll walk you through how to get started. Or you call me or Dave or one of the local guys, we're going to help you too. But if you want one of these, let me know, and we'll get one to you. Some people like to do some of the work before they come in, so whatever you want to do, we'll work with you. Okay, so what is the conservation planning process? This is where you have to come get somebody out of the office, right? We need to come out to your place and we need to look, right? So you guys have an idea, right? You come in, our part of the world, it is livestock water, right? And you want to get water out there. So you come in, you have your idea, right? What resource concern we're going to meet, all that. You really need to get your NRCS office out there so that we can help evaluate that and inventory, look at all your different resource concerns, because we're going to see things different from what you see, right? And we're going to help develop alternatives. You think that, yep, I want to build a pond, okay? Well, maybe after coming out and talking to us and we go out and see, you know, hey, we got rural water here, or we have access to a well or something like that. Just to develop different alternatives and to give you guys more options. We'll help with you know, cost estimates, all of that is sort of deal. So the planning process, first we got to assess your resource concerns and different opportunities. We'll develop your plan and then we implement it, right? I'll go through each one of them steps a little more. Assessing and resourcing opportunities. We got to identify what concerns you have. We got to go see what you have, right? Like, how good is the grass? Is there places they're not grazing? What can we do for that? Do we need to do cross fences? Can we get it away with just putting water there instead of doing fences? Do we need livestock shelter? Not to talk just about livestock. I mean, we're crop ground. Do we need to do something there? Do we need to work on soil health? trees. We would plant trees anywhere, right? So planting trees, all of that sort of thing. And NRCS's job, in my point of view, is to just come up with ideas, right? We are idea men. Okay, so we're going to come up and then just what kind of ideas that we throw at you. Maybe think about what you want to do. Maybe it'll change. Maybe we'll stick with your original plan, whatever, you know, but let's talk about it and let's look at what you got. Okay, so developing the conservation plan. So what did we talk about, right? What did we evaluate? What do you want to do? Okay, because after all, my number one point of all this is it is your plan. So even though we come up with lots of ideas and make you think about this and we talk about that and we do all this stuff, at the end of the day, it is your plan. You decide what you want to do. You decide when you want to do it, how you want to do it, all of that. It is up to you. We're just there to assist. So the decision maker will decide what they want to do. Here's what comes from the plan when we're all done. Okay, we're going to have your objectives and goals written down. You're going to get a photo, a map of your place. Since we started as the soil conservation service, right? You're going to get soils maps and soils description because we're really big on all the soil stuff. You'll get all the data that we put together. Whatever treatments you decided to do, whatever practices you decided to do, the location, when you wanted to do them, and then we'll have an operation and maintenance package too, so that you know what you have to do to keep things maintained. Let's see what my next slide says here. Oh, so we got a plan. Now you got to implement it, right? So we'll be there to help you implement it. We can help you, you know, walk through the different processes, especially on reservations. You know, we often have to get easements. We have to go through THPO, all of that stuff. And we're more willing to help guide you through that process and the things that you have to do. We'll have a list of contractors, ideas for all of that. We don't pick a contractor for you. That is between you and them. We don't come out and plant the seed. That is up to you. I mean, we're here just to help assist in paying for those practices. And sometimes our big, great, wonderful plan just goes to heck and we got to reevaluate and adjust, right? And we can do that. Now, we are the federal government, so like our adjustment period takes a minute, right? But we're willing to go in and we know these plans are going to change, and so that's no big deal. I'm probably going to let Dave go in and start talking about is the different programs we can do. But the number one thing that I want you to remember about this planning process is get a hold of those NRCS people and get them out there, right? Get them out to your place and let's go look at it. And number two is it is your plan, right? At the end of it, you shouldn't feel like, well, Dave's making me put this pipeline in, or Dave's making me do this cross fence or whatever. Like at the end of it, it is your plan and you guys need to take the ownership of it. So don't let us talk you into something you really don't want to do, okay? I'm going to jump over. I'm going to let Dave kind of start handling some of the different programs and options that we cover. Sure. I'll run them up. There's too much big guy here. Okay. Sorry.
Are we going to have to separate you two? I should have made you guys get on different computers.
They've been trying for years.
They have been trying.
We've been together since 2004, so.
You don't want to date yourself that bad, do you guys?
He was old then. I was.
Stop it. All right. Thanks, guys.
Our financial assistance programs, one of the first ones we're going to talk about is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. EQIP, we call it. So if I refer to it, it'll be EQIP. Basically, it's just a program that's 2 to 10 years plan, and it's for structural practices and some management. So like the structural will be like your cross fence, your water tanks, grass seedings, cover crops, prescribed grazing is more of the management, and then crop rotations. We're trying to improve soil health. We'll do some of that, some of the things on soil health. If it's for wildlife, we do practices for wildlife, tree plantings, things like that. Pollinator seedings, anything that would help go towards your goal of what you want your operation to look like. So, and with that, we have advanced payments. And what that is say you wanted to build a fence, but you didn't have the money for the material, so we'll set money aside in our contracts, so you come in and you can get 50% down, so you can buy the material to install the fence. And once the fence is installed, then we'll pay for the rest of it. So, and the assignment is say like our conservation districts plant our trees, and they always order them usually late fall, early winter, and because you want to make sure you get the trees that you need to plant. So we can do an assignment, and as long as the district knows that they're going to get the money for planting the trees, they can order them. So, or some of them require a down payment, so that kind of eliminates that step, so they know they're going to get paid. So, and then I guess here's a little bit of the examples. Why one of the things we do with tree planting is you put we call it mulching, but it's tree fabric, and it helps hold the weeds and helps it's mesh, so it lets water infiltrate, so it gives the plants a lot better chance to survive. And since we've been putting, because that's our limiting factor in western South Dakota is moisture. So, but since we've been putting fabric down, our tree survival has been a lot better. And then the other thing is we do cross fencing, and in some cases border fences if we're fencing out crop areas that producers are wanting to graze, things like that. And they just need to meet our specifications. So these are just pictures of some of the projects. Here you can see upper left is the picture of a well with a solar pumping plant, and you can tell it's for summer use. So it's set up to where it just pumps and dumps right into the tank, and then there's probably an overflow on that tank into the creek, so it can stay full. And what we do with solar pumps is we try and figure out how many head of cattle you have, and then we need so many days of storage set in there in case it's not sunny to run the pump on days that it's cloudy. So they usually still pump when it's cloudy, but just not as much. So that way there's water sitting there when the cattle come up to drink. In the right picture is more of a winter drinking. So it's insulated tank with the cover on it there. So that way so because we plan everything for a 12-month period. So, and if you look at the bottom left, you can see one of the winter drinking tanks with some fabricated windbreak or livestock shelter structure. They've changed the name to now, but basically those livestock shelter structures they do just that, protect livestock from the wind. We angle them into the northwest because that's a majority wind during the winter. And then we also use them to pull livestock up out of riparian areas. That way, if they do defecate, it's not a direct impact on the creek or a draw, or everything runs down the draws and goes right into the creeks or the lakes or ponds or rivers. So that way it's one of the things that we use for doing that also. The other thing that we do is we call it urban ag, and it's on a lot smaller scale. So we work with people that have gardens in towns and rural communities. And then also on the tribal level, right now Nate and I are working with ACRE, which is Agricultural Cheyenne River Enterprises, and they're going to do about 15 of these. They want to do one in every community on Cheyenne River. what we call a high tunnel. And we're gonna look at some examples here in a little bit. But basically just putting a proposal to bring in the funding so that they can go install these on these communities. And it's more of a small acres. So we work with businesses. We do other, I have a list coming up with some of the other projects that we do, cover crops, mulching, we do some mulching, micro irrigation. So that way there's water for watering your plants. It says here in 2023, we have 300,000 for high tunnels. We had a total of 175 tunnels with another 50 in contracts to be installed. So I haven't heard the numbers lately on what we've got, but we get some every year. So we have a separate fund pool. So when they're smaller producers, they don't have to compete with the bigger producers to get funded. And upper right, you can see that's the high tunnel that we put in on the homeless shelter in Eagle Butte. And if you look, they have some raised beds in there and a little bit of irrigation running along the floor there. Basically what they used theirs for was they have other raised beds that are outside of the high tunnel, and they get all their plants started in this one and then move them out to their other beds that are around their homeless shelter. And also have plants growing in here throughout the summer too. But that's, you can start your plants earlier, that way if you get a frost, you just close the sides up and the ends so that you don't have the freezing in there. And then later on in the fall, your plants will last a little longer, so you can harvest them a little later also. And on the bottom of that, you can see the plantings we did there was a choke cherry planting at the Elderly Nutrition Center. And it's just basically for the elders to go out and pick fruits and make jelly and wojapi and things like that. And then just the upper left there was just a project I did. We did a pond in 1999 and fixed it. That was one of my first projects. And then it's not just used for livestock water, but you can see it's used for recreation also. So this is a high tunnel down on Ogallala, down on Pine Ridge. And you can kind of see some of the harvest that they got from it. You can see some of the plants. I'm assuming that's what they did there, is they started their plants and then moved them outside. You can see the garden around the high tunnel. And this is just other examples. The different kinds, there's a Gothic style, which will hold a better snow load. They cost more to put in, but if you have issues with snow, better to go with the Gothic design so you can handle the extra weight from the snow. And a lot of my producers will pull their plastic and put it back on in the spring, because every 3 or 5 years, from hail, wind ripping it, snow load, things like that, you got to replace them. So as long as you know going into them, you're going to have to do a little maintenance and replace that plastic. That way you can keep using it. And then you can see some of the micro irrigation. So there's some pretty good plants growing in these high tunnels. And then this is just kind of a list of the practices. We have all this stuff online also. So we can give you a copy of the presentation, but you can also look it up. The high tunnel, we also have a low tunnel, which say you only have one row in your garden that you want to protect. You can put the low tunnel over it, a lot less cost share, but a lot easier to build and pick up. The cover crops, and what the cover crops do is they provide nutrients back into your soil after you pull your garden crops off. You plant a cover crop, and then you don't have to apply fertilizer the next year, because all the plants that you're planting there are breaking down and providing the nutrients for your next crop. And you can see the mulching just to keep the weeds out and help hold moisture in the soil. Do pollinators around people's high tunnels to bring in the bees and whatnot to pollinate the the plants. The raised beds, we have a cost share for those. And then the micro irrigation, those are the main ones that we do to help provide water for the high tunnels. Another financial assistance program is a conservation stewardship program, or CSP. So this is after we do a conservation plan, and if you do an EQIP and get all your practices into place, like your water and your fencing and your rotational grazing going, this is paying you for management above and beyond just a rotational grazing system. So some people do, like they'll clip their forage and send it in and figure out what the protein level is to see if they need to supplement nutrients to their livestock. Some of them do a fecal sample and send and get a report back from Texas. Texas A&M has a lab down there where you can send your sample down there and they'll send you back a report. And then what we do is you hire a range specialist to maybe evaluate your land, plus they'll write a report up for the nutrition level that comes back and say what you need to do. What we're finding out is more towards August, you just got to start supplementing your grass. On a dry year, the nutrition level drops because there's not a lot of moisture in August in this country. And so then that about right in there is when we want to start. And then as we get fall rains in September and into October, the nutrition goes back up in our plants. So it just depends on which pasture you're in. A lot of times we can rotate from one pasture to another and improve your nutritional value. So you don't have to, otherwise you got to supplement. You could feed them with lick barrels, or you could go out with cake, or, but it's easiest to just switch pastures onto a fresh pasture and then the nutrition goes back up. So if you took a sample before you went in and after you've been in there, then you'll know when to move to the next pasture. So it kind of sets your rotation up for you. It leads to shorter grazing periods. And then sometimes we use our crop to enhance our rotations. And when we started mixing cattle back on our crop fields, they spread the nutrients out right on the field. They're eating it off the field and putting it right back on it. So that helps with your fertilizer for the next year too. You don't have to buy as much. You can do your soil samples. And, some people don't need to buy any because their cover crops provide them the nutrients for the next year. So that is a 5-year plan, up to $200,000 a year, or not a year, for over the 5-year period. So that's about $40,000 a year for 5 years. So it's really helped a lot of our producers in our area. And we've used, I don't know how many, several hundred contracts on Cheyenne River that we've had over the years for lots of dollars. So it all goes with the producer because they're the ones doing it. And these are just some of the examples. Upper left, one of the practices for prescribed grazing is you can change your fence to a wildlife friendly fence. So what this producer did, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but he wrote, got to be 16 to 18 inches off the ground with the bottom wire, and it's got to be smooth. So that way antelope and deer can crawl under it, not get hung up. And then he just put the spacing on his post, so his hired man, or if you got anybody to help him clip that fence, they got the spacing right when they walked down from one post to the next after they added the smooth wire. So, and then in the middle on the top, you can see a producer set up a monitoring cage so that way you could come back over the years and just see as it's being grazed how much it's growing. You could measure the difference in your production for a year. And that was one of the practices that they had, was you do monitoring and you take pictures of what's there, keep your records. And the bottom left, that's actually an EQIP practice. It's livestock crossing, basically, but we make them big enough so you can get vehicles across it. But they'll walk half a mile to 3/4 of a mile to cross that rather than walk through a muddy creek. You wouldn't believe it. But the one in the middle is a riparian. They fenced off a riparian area and planted trees out there and put fabric squares down. And the one on the right is just a cross fence. You can kind of see there that the old trail that the cows made walk into water, and that's one of the things that we try and eliminate is erosion out on rangeland. So if you can provide another water source and put in a cross fence to hold them onto a pasture and rotate them, you eliminate those trailing areas. So another practice, you can kind of see top left, that was a tree planting. And the one in the middle, you can see the livestock shelter structure, pulling them out of the riparian area. And then the upper right, we used to have a practice in our CSP that was wildlife friendly practice. So wildlife could get out of the tank. And now we require it in all the tanks that we do install so that they do have, it's just part of the tank cost now. Bottom left, it was we used to have a pond initiative that we called it. We at our tribal advisory meeting, the tribes there were wanting a different ranking for the smaller producers to get in a few practices. One of them was to fix ponds and to build a pond. So they only had one project they wanted to do, but they couldn't compete because somebody doing prescribed grazing and cross fence and water development with pipelines and tanks and stuff would rank higher than somebody with just a pond. So we created the pond initiative so the smaller guys could just do their one project. And in that, you had to fence off the spillways in the fill and then seed them. So this is one that was just done when I took this picture. The middle one is just a riparian fence, fenced off a riparian and drainage area. And then the bottom right, I just wanted to mention that we do work with the Tribal Historic Preservation Office for cultural resources and to make sure that we can cross tribal and allotted land with permission. So we work with ours on a weekly basis. Usually I send them some projects and we set a time up and make sure that it's flagged for them and so that they can go out and look at it. And we go out and look at it also, but just you work together. And if you see something, our motto is avoidance. So we'll move the project. Sometimes we've shortened up, might have a pipeline next to something, whether it be a gathering area or might be an old lodge or a village. And so we'll move it or shorten it and just, we can do that right out there when we're with them. So we can look at these projects and adjust them if they need it. So.
Dave and Nate, we have a question.
Good.
And
they better listen to us.
It's a good one. And it makes me curious on this as well. Just wondering why South Dakota NRCS uses Texas A&M for fecal analysis and not SDSU. I inquired with Dr. Hildreth at SDSU, and he seems to do the same testings as Texas A&M. And that's a good question, like on the behalf of like all state extension programs, I guess, and state universities that do have, what we have. So I just out of curiosity, what do you guys know about that?
Yeah, it's just producer preference. We give them a list of range specialists to call for assistance, and we'll give them a list of soil sample places, forage sample places. It's their call. I use Texas A&M as an example, so I apologize for that. So
yeah. I also think that 15 years ago when we started CSP, Texas A&M, they had the nutball program. And,
yep.
And so that was the program that we used. And so I think that's just kind of what we've always just said to them. I don't know that we have a requirement that it has to be Texas A&M.
No, we don't have. The producer chooses where they want to send their samples to, who they want to hire. All we do is you bring their report to us so we can verify that you did the practice.
Okay.
With our payment for the management.
Zincala says here, got it. Dr. Hildreth is also testing one of our ranches for free on an ongoing basis because helping native bison ranchers fits into his research priorities. So heads up on that for your guys' information as well. Thank you guys so much. All right, now you can keep going.
Yeah, this is just a little bit of information on what we've done since 2019. So 188 miles of fence, 149 miles of pipeline, 1,733 water tanks. And I'm sure we're over that now after, we're started on projects this year. So, and it's over 924,000 acres of truss land. So if it was a single fence, it stretched from Mobridge to Sisseton, and the pipeline would stretch from Mission to Eagle Butte. So just an example of what we work with, what we accomplished, I guess. On-site technical assistance partners. Now, this is nowhere near a list of everybody we work with. It just, when you're bringing in money for projects, you need to work with others to help get you funded. And we'll kind of go through some of those other programs that we have that works with some of these. This is Soil Health Coalition, our Grazing Coalition, specialty producers, our districts. They're local. They have a meeting usually every month, and what they provide around here is we have tree planting service, and we have drills and stuff that you can rent. I know some districts have corn planters, they might have manure spreaders, and things like that. So just all they are is a service to the public. It's it's a board that comes in and it's okay, what can we do to help the public? And, the Soil Health Coalition, they work a lot with our specialty producers. Just basically, how do you improve soil health? And what works, what doesn't work. They have tours and stuff throughout the state, throughout the summer usually, and just whatever producer's doing something that's kind of unique and so something that somebody else may be interested in doing, then they have a tour for it. So Pheasants Forever biologist. We have Bird Conservancy. We work with game fishing parks, the tribes, and BIA. We work with them a lot to help get projects done on our reservation. And we have trainings together. So our software and what they're doing and what we're doing on the grazing land matches. So they understand what we're doing when we develop a plan, and we develop it with them and go through them to get things approved and get our easements and everything into place and make sure that we don't stick in a pipeline where we don't have permission to do it. So, and you can kind of see some of the cover crops that producers are holding there. And what we do, we have a lot of hard pan and stuff in our areas. So we plant a lot of turnips and radishes. So that way it'll go down and open the soil up. And then when those plants disintegrate, they leave a hole behind to let water infiltrate into the soil and things like that. We usually put a plant in there to help provide nitrogen into the soil. And that's one of the things that we're adding with our artificial fertilizers. So if you already got the plant there, then you don't need to add as much fertilizer for the next year. So, and then we do like infiltration tests, to check if we did get a rainfall, how much water would the soil absorb, because it might be compacted. And so those are some of the plants that we put in to help improve reduce compaction. So we also work with IAC in our area. We have tours with them. They have a meeting in Vegas every year. They have different presentations that they do down at that. I've been down to it several times. Nate's going this year probably. And then they have a lot with the youth. They have interns. So I've presented at their Great Plains Youth Forum that they have. And then I did a presentation last week with their interns that they have. They're up from all over the nation. So just to kind of explain what NRCS does. And then I'll let Nate take over on some of these other ones.
Really like this tag teaming you guys are doing. I feel like I'm back in the office with you guys.
Feel like I don't think we'd have done this better even if we'd have practiced. Like we're really
You
nailing it.
guys couldn't. You're doing great.
We have NRCS has lots of other programs, and they all have different requirements, that sort of thing. The EQIP and CSP that we talked about are our main programs, our flagship programs, but we do have other ones. We have easement programs. That we do this a lot on the east side of the state, and it's more for wetlands, that sort of thing. But if you're interested, just call us because we're not experts on this stuff. So we got these easement programs. They're great. The people that I know that are in them really like them. If you want more information, give us a call. That's about the best I can do on those. We also have RCPP, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. I've been pretty involved with this. So the way that this program works is we need a partner, right? We need somebody to bring a proposal to NRCS. And this is ranked nationally, and national decides who gets funded. We've had a lot of really good success in South Dakota. We've had some really good success with tribal partners on this. But it's if you want to target a certain area or a certain issue or something like that in your area, you can bring a proposal to us and we can help fund it. So I'm going to use the Intertribal Buffalo Council as an example. We've done a big project with them in the last couple, and we're going to do a lot of buffalo fencing, water pipeline, prescribed grazing, prescribed burning. And the way that one is working is they're actually in charge of it. We're helping fund it, but they're going to do the ranking, the planning, the certification of practices, all of that. So it's just another way to concentrate and do more of a local type deal. So if you have any ideas, I'm more than happy to help you, but it doesn't take a whole lot of match. If you do have some money to match, great. If you have in kind, we can use that as a match. But it's a really good locally led type of program.
Nate, on that program, is that, I mean, does everyone have that, or is that a South Dakota thing, or
It's nationwide.
it's nationwide? Okay.
Yeah.
I was
And
just thinking like there's some serious leafy spurge issues over here where I'm at in Montana, and I'm like, I wonder if that's something.
yeah, and so like a tribe can come in and say that they want to partner on leafy spurge, right? And okay, so this is what we're going to do. This is how we want to treat it. And we can also do this AFA, which is the alternative funding arrangement. And so what's really great with that is if there is something within it, like you've worked with NRCS before, and man, it just doesn't quite fit, right? Like, and especially on tribal deals where we might have some sort of culturally different, like we want to do something different. Okay, now we can fund it through this AFA alternatively and use that local knowledge and to do things. And it could be, I know there's one in Montana where, and it's the same way on Cheyenne River, but we can't get a well driller, right?
Yep.
Like it's
Yep.
impossible, right? And so they might want 10 grand down to even show up. So we can do some of this alternative funding stuff to be able to help facilitate that. And instead of having it as a nationwide or a statewide program, we can do it, okay, we're going to do it on Cheyenne River, we can do this. You know, it's a local problem, so we can deal with that. It's actually really easy to apply, and it's funny because it's absolutely backwards of what we do with EQIP or CSP, right? We do the whole plan beforehand, and then we fund it. With RCPP, national funds it, and then we write the plan. But anyway, apply for it if you want to, and then we'll figure it out later, which is great for me and Dave because we're figuring it out later, people. Next one we wanted to talk about. All of a sudden my mouse won't work. there we go, is Conservation Innovation Grant. So we have used this in actually on Cheyenne River, more of a statewide deal, but so we were doing these deep artesian wells and the water quality was horrible, right? And so we did one of these CIGs to put reverse osmosis filtration systems, say that three times fast. Anyway, put that on these wells to help treat the water and do that. And it was successful. We proved that it worked well and all that. So now that practice is now in our docket. So once again, if there's something that you're like, man, I wish NRCS would do this, come up with a proposal for us and we'll look at it and we'll try it. Sign up. Okay, so we didn't cover this beforehand. I noticed a hole in our presentation. So to sign up for any of these programs, you need to come in the office and sign a 1200, a CPA 1200 form. And basically what we want on that form is we want to know your name. We want to know where you want to do it. We want to know what you want to sign up for, what program. If it's a business, we need the legal ID numbers and that sort of thing. And that's about it, right? To sign up. And by signing up, you are not legally bound to anything. All you're doing is saying, I would like to be considered for one of these programs. Okay. So once you're signed up, every state will have a different date, but they have a date on where, okay, you got to be signed up by this date. This August 29th, they just changed that this morning, so just ignore that. But they'll say, everybody that signed up by October 3rd, you're going to be in this batch. And those are the applications that we're going to work on. We will take your application absolutely any day that we are here. Okay, so you can sign up any day. But it'll get batched into these different groups. And then those are the ones we work on for the next year. So batching date is October 3rd. Those are the ones we're going to work on. We'll have all those ranked by November 11th of this year. And we go through all our reviews and funding and pre-approvals and all that. So it's the government, right? And it takes a while. So it'll probably be like March before we know if you're funded. And that's the bad thing about NRCS is we're always like a year away from the money. So the earlier you get in, the earlier we start getting the planning process going, the better. But you can sign up absolutely any day. Anything you want to add to that?
Just once they're pre-approved, then we finish writing them, just gather signatures, and then we obligate the money.
Nate, before you guys go on, Janet's got a question in here, and I think it's one that we'll talk about now because it's regarding the RCPP awards and those partner organizations. And she asked, does NRCS provide any training in conservation planning for partner organizations?
Yes, so that's part of the plan after it gets funded is we figure out what needs to happen there, what trainings and that sort of thing, and we can help provide that. And we can also, I mean, it's all negotiable, so we can argue about who's going to do the planning and who's not, and what trainings we're going to provide and all of that thing. So that's no problem.
Like with the buffalo fence, we'll bring in a range specialist to talk about what are the specs for the fence, so we make sure it's built right for their proposal that they have.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Let's get back to, so this just came out yesterday. If we get in trouble for sending this, like, okay. But supposedly in the new Big Beautiful Bill Act, they're going to increase a bunch of our funding. So looks good for us.
And then one that we didn't talk about on there is the Public Law 566. And what that has to do with is watershed planning. And we know about the loss of life down in Texas. So obviously they're going to kick some money towards that. And this came out before the flooding, but that's something that they knew they needed to work on. So they're tripling the funding for that, is what it sounded like. So one of the things that we do in South Dakota is like over East River, we have ponds that hold water and let it out slow. They'll have a tube through the bottom of it. So that way there's less flooding. It'll hold the water in those ponds and then let it out over time. So And that's probably something that they'll do down there, is build structures that might hold the water a little longer and not let it go down and raise the river beds and creek beds and stuff like that up so much.
This slide, there are people in our state that are better than Dave and I, like they don't. They're the specialists. So if you want to read it straight out to them, go ahead. But they're probably going to kick it back to us anyway. But anyway, these are people that in our state that, so we have dedicated people to each one of these programs to help us through it.
And we have them on standby, so when we need help, we call them.
And we need lots of help.
Can I drop your guys' emails into the chat for folks who might want to get a hold of you guys directly? Is that cool?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. I was going to do it anyway, but I figured I'd ask while I had John here.
You know, Dave and I have trouble talking to people.
Oh, yeah, right. Not even. One other question in here about the RCPP. Is there a deadline for applying?
So they haven't sent out anything for 2025. But they roll it out and there'll be a 30-day period. It's not been very structured. It's kind of been like, hey, we're going to roll this out for the next month. I've heard that the next sign up period for that is going to be early October. So you start working on your ideas now, get a hold of us now, and then maybe we'll be ready to put in for it in October. But it's a national deal, so you have to watch for the national bulletins when it comes out. If we know that you're interested, we can send it out to you when we see that it opens up. Any other programs, questions for us while we're going? Okay, so one of the things that I'm proud of, I'm sure Dave is, in South Dakota, is we do a lot of educational programs, right? Like, well, kind of like this. Somebody calls us and we just jump on and tell you what we know. But anyway, we've got these soil health specialists that'll run around and they do a really good job presenting. And these are just examples of different things we've done, like this rainfall simulator. We'll haul that all over the state. We'll do it for adults. We'll do it for, like, BIA's called us. We've come in and done that. I've done lots of different stuff for different outfits that want to do it. The youth, we do a lot of youth stuff, especially Dave and I, because his wife's a kindergarten teacher and she makes us. But we're up in the school a lot, and you know, just we take different types of soil up and show the different types of soils and different types of plants, and we'll take some wildlife folks up there with us and go through different wildlife things. I don't know of an office in South Dakota that won't do this. If this is something that you're interested in and you want us to come for Arbor Day, World Soils Day, like we do all sorts of different things. So don't be afraid to reach out to us. We really like FFA clubs, 4-H clubs, all of that. So just don't be afraid to reach out, and we've got materials and things to come try to educate a little bit. These are just more pictures of different things we've done. Yep, if you have groups, anything like that, we'll come out and we'll come out to your place and do different demonstrations. They're actually kind of cool. It's fun to do. Earth Team volunteers. This is a really important part of NRCS because we're a locally led agency, right? Like we want that local stuff. So if you're interested in any of this kind of thing, you can come help us. You can learn what we do. You can jump in the pickup, come along with us. It's like 1 or 2 forms you got to sign saying you won't sue us if we wreck the pickup, and just come out and hang out with us. So the Earth Team volunteer thing is a lot of fun. Careers. So we're in a hiring freeze, and it's pretty hard to talk about careers right now. But the one thing I will say is we need people all the time, even if right now we're not hiring. And the great thing about NRCS is, number one, we're in every county in the union, right? So anywhere you want to go, anywhere you want to work, we're there. If you or your kid or your grandkid wants to come back and help on the ranch, we're really, really flexible. You can come work with us and still help ranch. Pay's pretty good. The benefits are real good. You get to hang out with idiots like me and Dave. We'll make you look smart.
Nate, I had a question on this one that came in. And the question is how do you become a tribal liaison for NRCS? And if you want my answer to it, it was you just have to be in the office long enough that they're trying to, move you on, because I feel like that's you and Dave. But
do you have like a regular heartbeat? No, so to be a tribal liaison, you have to be a soil conservationist, right? And so it does take a 4-year degree. You do have to have so many different classes and credits in soil and plants and animals and all of that sort of thing. But once you get into NRCS, like I never once planned on being a tribal liaison, right? And once you get in, there's a lot of different career paths that you can take from there. I mean, here's just some of the things we do, right? We also need IT specialists, and we need people that can run the maps, and we can, all of that. So if natural resources is something that you're interested in, and even if you're not a soil scientist or whatever, like we can still find a spot for you. A lot of engineering. We argue with a lot of engineers all the time because Dave and I think it should work. But anyway,
we do have a soil conservationist position, technician position that doesn't require a lot of school. They'll train you what you need to know, and then you're just, if you're living near an office and you're you need a job, we offer them all the time. So,
well, not right now, but typically we offer them all the time. How do you apply? You find one of these USDA service centers and you walk in. If you don't know where it's at, we do have locators and stuff on the website. Justine's already going to put our information in the chat. Call us. We will help connect you with who you need to be connected with and help you get through it. If you have any questions, there's our contact info there. If you have any complaints, that's our boss. And I guess I'll just open it up for questions now. This is the end of our slideshow. So.
Well, we just want to thank you guys for coming and keeping us entertained, and as well as teaching us about what the NRCS and the NUSTA buildings and what you guys all do. I think it's really important to know that like these guys are here to help us as producers. I always like to say no idea is a dumb idea. When you come in and you're like, I want to do this, this, and this, they're either going to tell you that they think it's going to work with the soil types that you have or the area that you're in, or they're going to tell you, well, let's try again and see what else we can figure out to help solve your problem. I did drop into the chat where to find your local center. So if you're not right in South Dakota, or you're not right in the Ziebach, Dewey County area where these guys are at, you can find your local office there, or just get a hold of Nate or Dave. Does anybody have any other questions? I think we've answered most of them throughout the presentation. I'm looking back to make sure.
I'm glad we didn't practice this, Justine. That way, I mean, this was authentic.
Oh, you two are always authentic. That's just point blank. I've never seen you be anything but. So yeah, I just want to thank these guys again for being here. I want to make sure that everybody on the call knows that you can visit our website, you can visit the NRCS website and get more information. to let you know, Akiptan is having a couple more webinars coming up, one in September with these guys' office mates. We're going to have Farm Service Agency coming on board to talk to us a little bit about their programs and what they have to offer. And then mark down October 15th because that's always our big one with Rob Holcomb. He comes in to do the agricultural tax update. I do know that there's been some changes going on with taxation around agriculture and businesses. So he'll have all sorts of updates and get us hopefully on the right track, or at least try to. And so we just want to, again, thank both of you for your time. We really do appreciate you guys being here. And we'll go ahead and let everybody get back to their busy days. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.